Reimagining tomorrow means a radical re-envisioning of who owns the American theater.
As people start to move protagonism from men to women, from white people to people of color, from cis people to trans people and queer people, from the able-bodied to the disabled, it's a revolution, actually. It's about changing the world.
To be risk takers is to dare to dream, is to reinvent the form, is to look at a Zoom box and unzoom the box and see what the possibilities are for creative expression.
Reimagining tomorrow starts with being present today.
Welcome to Reimagining Tomorrow, Goodman Theater's annual education and engagement event. Here at the Goodman, we have long held that our primary mission must be in service of Chicago, all of Chicago, in all of its evolving needs and complexities, from the work on our stages and the stories we tell, works which cast a light on voices and stories too seldom heard, to the educational and community programs behind the scenes. In many ways, the beginning of this commitment coincided with my arrival at the theater in 1986. At that time, a visionary group of artists, staff, trustees, and funders launched the School Matinee Series, a program designed to welcome thousands of Chicago public school students into the cultural conversation with study guides, training for their teachers, and most importantly, free access to the plays on our stages. Over the years, this work has grown, establishing a national reputation for our innovative programming. Our education and engagement programs have blossomed to encompass more than a dozen initiatives that serve 6,000 Chicagoans each year, completely free of charge. We've established many partnerships with local theater companies, schools, activist groups, and local social service organizations to launch many projects, ranging from supporting local theater festivals to citywide celebrations of playwrights like August Wilson and Lorraine Hansberry, to our Share the Joy celebrations of A Christmas Carol, which distribute thousands of tickets to veterans, first responders, and other groups. Even in these challenging times, with our theater and our work temporarily halted, we were able to present a remarkable new play about the great civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer, Speak on It, for free, socially distanced audiences at 9 city parks, making for an electrifying call to the polls, working with the League of Women Voters and local chapters of Zeta Phi Beta, who were able to register new voters right on the spot. The arts, and in particular theater, have an unmatched ability to help us through these difficult times. And it's always been my sincere belief that theater has the potential to unlock our imaginations for creativity, for empathy, and help us chart a course towards a better and more just world. With the Goodman centennial around the corner, we are as committed to this work as ever. As you hear from artists today who span the field, I encourage you to come with us on this journey. Thank you.
Chicago is home for me, and theater is a very important part of my life. I was thrilled when I was asked if I would consider joining the Goodman board. I don't join boards because life is really complicated. There's work, there's kids, there's husband, there's house, but this thrilled me. I am one of 4 girls. My parents came to Chicago from Puerto Rico. Neither one of them has an education. They didn't graduate from high school. But education was very important to them. And they worked really hard to make sure that all 4 girls would have an education. They sacrificed, but we didn't have a clear path on how to achieve. And then I found theater in high school. And I found my voice. I found confidence. I found a family. I found out what inclusivity means. I found a place where I felt safe. And the Goodman does that. Not just for kids in high school trying to figure out who they are and where they're going in life. The multi-layered approach of making sure that the Goodman reaches every single vast area in and around Chicago. Especially during these tough times, they have been able to pivot and take everything that they do and put it online. It's become global. This is a really special place. It is a place that speaks to all of us. And I know that you want to join me, and I know that you want to be here. And I know that it's going to happen for all of us very soon. You've missed this place. I have missed it. And you're going to learn a lot of what has happened while we've had to take this pause. I'm Zoraida Samberlin from NBC5 Chicago, and I am delighted to be your host.
Today you're going to meet a powerhouse, Willa J. Taylor. Along with her team, they design educational programs and they build community partnerships. You're also going to meet Henry Godinez and E. Faye Butler, the dynamic duo behind Fannie Lou Hamer Speak On It, which happened in the park in spite of the pandemic. And acclaimed director Liesl Tommy, she'll be here with The Outsiders at the Goodman. You will hear from artists and partners of all ages and stages in their careers about their connection to the Goodman. Before we begin, I would like to thank our donors and our sponsors. Because of you, this is all possible. Everything that happened during the pandemic that was free of charge is because of you. Thank you. I know I said before we begin, but one more thing. We have a really unique opportunity to double our money, and it is thanks to the Sachs family. They have very generously agreed to match up to $25,000 during this event. I have this expression that I love. It is, come as you are, take what you need, and give if you can. Thank you again to the Sachs family. That is very generous of you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome Willa J. Taylor. Willa, take it away.
As the Walter Director of Education and Engagement here at the Goodman Theater, I have the enviable position of being able to create programs and strategies to help teachers expand their definition of learning, to ignite curiosity and passion in students, both young and old, and to help communities develop strategies to solve community-identified problems. I get to work with all the artists, artisans, craftspeople, and administrators of the Goodman, but there are 4 people who really make it a joy. These 4 people are the backbone of the Education and Engagement Department, and I want to introduce you to them now.
In a typical year in the School Matinee series, we welcome thousands of Chicago high school students into the Goodman to engage with plays and post-show discussions. We also provide professional development workshops for their educators, developing skills and strategies for arts integration so that Chicago educators of all academic subjects and disciplines can meaningfully integrate Goodman plays into their classrooms.
Generations is a program for anybody who is 55 years of age or better. It's a personal narrative writing for performance program. So each of our students write a 5-minute story, which they will then perform at the end of each session. While the program is steeped in ensemble-driven practices, the work is also very personal and very individual. The writing that comes out of this program is all from the individuals themselves.
So Intergens brings together storytellers from our Generations program and high schoolers from across Chicago to write and perform original pieces of theater that consider the perspectives of all ages. A multi-generational devised theater program that the Goodman has held every summer for the past 10 years.
One thing that we were not able to do, as we have done for the past many years in the summers, was run our programs, our play builds, and our musical theater intensive programs. What we did instead, we offered virtual programming that sort of mirrored or borrowed many different techniques from those programs. So we did a program called Alone Together, where we used teaching artists from musical theater intensive. And those students were focused on music and singing still. We're focused on monologues. We're focused on really using the tools of theater to tell stories. And instead of play build, we did a program called Strike this year. And that was Strike, the Youth Political Theater Project. And so Strike was developed in the height of this summer that we had, where we were facing the pandemic and where we were seeing uprisings from the movement for Black lives, right, due to the racial injustices, the continued killings of many Black people in this country. The young people were already talking about these things. We knew that they wanted a space to continue to talk about them, but also we believe that theater has the power, right, to continue to educate people, that it helps us develop tools, right, to be able to change some of those systemic injustices. And that really is how we got to Strike.
This year, our aim was to be able to meet the same goals that we always have for the School Matinee series, but to be able to provide all resources online, like our study guides to provide social and historical context to the plays that students are seeing. And this year we were also able to provide short video clips and in some cases full productions of Goodman plays. One of the most requested resources from our partnering educators is for Spanish language resources. This year we were thrilled to be able to provide study guide articles translated into Spanish from our A Christmas Carol study guide. We also provided virtual workshops for our teachers so they could engage with us and other teachers from the comfort of their home. This made the program much more adaptable and flexible to teachers to teach the plays that they found most relevant to their classrooms and their students in the time of the year that matched up with the subject that they were tackling in their curriculum at that time.
There's been a major shift on the performance side of what we do. Usually folks are at a microphone, they're at a music stand, they have their words right in front of them, but now they have this frame in which is right in front of you, right? I'm in my frame right now, and now they can think about as a performance, like, what do I want in my frame? And they're starting to think more of like set designers, costume designers. We've started to build this larger idea of what performance is and how to take it bigger than just yourself.
When we moved our programming online last summer, the Intergens Ensemble immediately embraced the challenge of creating theater in a virtual space, which at that point none of us had really done before. So it was a truly collaborative effort between our younger participants who instinctively understood this new medium and the older folks in the program who had the wealth of experience that you need in order to tackle this kind of challenge. I feel like we've learned that physical space was a boundary to access for a lot of people.
To see how folks are connecting via story, and where you see folks that you don't think have similarities, to find a similar commonality by just the human experience is really beautiful to see. And to have that curated at the Goodman, specifically in our education department, I could do that for a really long time.
My hope for the future would be that we are able to expand the options that we have for accessible programming, accessible resources, resources translated into Spanish.
My hope for the future is that we'll be able to continue to use virtual space to expand the reach of our programs and continue to imagine new ways to build community online.
So to help you understand and really get a picture of what this work has looked like, I am very pleased to introduce a video of performance from our programs from this past summer and fall. From their bedrooms and their basements, from their living rooms and their kitchens where they had to kick out parents and siblings and have them be quiet. This is what our student artists had to go through, and with all of that, right, they created such moving, such emotional, such creative work, and we are very, very grateful to be able to share that with you. We hope that you enjoy.
One of the ways that I hope theater evolves in 2021 and beyond is by taking even more risk, work that sparks conversation, work that leads to even more tangible change.
The arts are important in our community because they educate us. They bring people together that normally wouldn't get together. There are a lot of social justice aspects to the arts as well. Prime example would be while I was a teaching artist at the Goodman, every summer we would get these kids together. We teach them about theater. We educate them about social justice, and they put a show together. And these kids come from all over the city, the suburbs, all of them come together, and they come in, they have their own perspectives and different ways of thinking about things, and it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work. You have all these people coming together, and every summer it worked. By the end of the summer, all these kids come together, they create this show, and it's amazing. And it's because of the arts.
Over 24 years, I have felt so committed and so devoted to the Goodman Theater that there are very few theaters, if any, in the United States that are as deeply and profoundly committed to inclusion, to diversity, like the Goodman is. And that's been true for a long time. And certainly one of the many examples of that commitment to representation and inclusion at the Goodman is most recently Fannie Lou Hamer's Speak on It. I had had the good fortune to work with Ife Butler years before in a production of A Christmas Carol that I directed, and the amazing thing about Ife is that every time she walks in the room to work on a project, she brings this enormous heart and this just incredible energy of joy and open-heartedness and collaboration that just makes her one of my favorite people in the world to collaborate with.
When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home. I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall grass bend into leaning. Suddenly the raindrops that fall, they have a meaning. Sprinkling a seed makes it all so clear. There's no place like home. Everybody makes you feel like you're somebody. When you're here, it's home, it's family. Oh, my name is Ife Butler, and I'm an artist. But did you know that I started out as a student at the Goodman School of Drama, and my fondest dream was to one day work on one of their stages, and I made it. 30 plus years later, I'm still welcome in my home. When you look around and see all the things that we've gone through, that we're going through, we can reimagine anything. Who would have thought that Zoom would be my rehearsal room when I started out? We are reimagining tomorrow. Like, I had the opportunity to work on a project, some of you may know, called Fannie, Speak on It. And it was at a time when everything had shut down from the pandemic, and we'd already done the workshop. And that piece meant so much to me. And Henry Godinez, my director and also artistic associate here at the Goodman, said to me, I really don't want to let that play go, because Fannie Lou Hamer was a freedom writer, and she was an activist for voting rights. And I knew the election was coming up, and so I called Cheryl and Henry and I said, look, we gotta do this piece. And when we rallied together and we came back to the Goodman, I remember the first day of our rehearsal, and it was virtual, and to see all of the staff, and I mean all of the staff. That's what I mean about community when I talk about the Goodman and their good work. All of the staff was there to congratulate us on our first day of work, and to talk about this partnership with the park districts and how we were going to go into the communities, not just the North Shore, but we went to Inglewood, we were on the South Side, we went to the West Side. You know, we went to 9 different parks in this city, and we took theater to the community. That's what's important about the Goodman Theater. If you can't come to us, we will certainly come to you. I remember working with Cheryl and Bruce in the schools in the summer programs, and we would go in some of the low-income neighborhoods, and we would teach those children how to write plays, how to perform in plays. And by the end of that 8-week session, those children experience life for those 8 weeks through the lens of the Goodman Theater. And it gives them hope. That's the beauty of what you learn in a place like this, is that you can be anything and everything you want to be. So when you're supporting education and outreach at the Goodman Theater, you're helping kids just like me. A kid who grew up on the South Side of Chicago that had aspirations to be an actress, but never knew if it could come true. So when you look around you and you think about the Goodman Theater and all the good work that it does for the students and the children of the city of Chicago, remember that they stimulate the mind. Not only do they go into the community, but they bring students to the theater. So I encourage you, I implore you to dig deep and give until it hurts. But it's hurting for a good reason. If you want to be a part of this amazing effort, please text Goodman 21 to the number below.
In a typical season, we produce over 2,000 performances and events in park spaces located in every ward and community area of Chicago. We're passionate about bringing arts programming that reflects the lives of Chicago's residents, made by Chicago's artists, to neighborhood parks, and presenting it for free for all to enjoy. Like most performing arts programs, 2020 presented challenges that required us to modify the way that we're able to support artists and communities. We're grateful for our partnership with the Goodman Theater that allowed us to explore how to safely resume free outdoor public programming with their production of Fannie Lou Hamer's Speak on It. While the Fannie production team worked diligently behind the scenes negotiating union contracts and developing artist safety protocols, the parks team devised audience seating plans and mapped out a front-of-house management strategy that allowed for a successful run of 10 shows in 9 parks across the city. Community response to these performances was completely overwhelming and undoubtedly positive. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the Goodman in future seasons.
Hi there, my name is Michael Rode, and I'm the founding artistic director of Sojourn Theater, a 20-year-old ensemble-based theater that works around the nation. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Center for Performance and Civic Practice, CPCP, which is an 8-year-old not-for-profit that also works around the nation, but is not a maker of theater, but is actually a national resource for artists and communities working to build arts-based, community-led transformation together. I'm really proud of CPCP's partnership with Goodman because it's wonderful to be part of such an important and meaningful and historic theater company that's had tremendous impact in Chicago and far beyond, as you know. And I'm always thrilled to get to learn from and work with Willa because of her commitment to values of equity and justice and inclusion and an ongoing, rigorous effort to make positive change for those she works with and for communities where her work occurs.
I am super excited to be working with the Goodman on exploring library work as a creative practice. Now, I have an insight on this because I started as an artist and I soon fell in love with services to the homeless. And I'm excited to bring that full circle to think about the ways in which we approach literacy and library services, information access, digital access creatively. What I'm hoping this partnership does is that it opens up the conversation about librarians and library workers as creative practitioners and what that can mean and portend for our communities, how we work and co-create within and with and on behalf of our communities. Really excited to see where this can go, and I know that it can go very, very far.
I am the project manager of our idea work, meaning I work with everybody on staff and on the board to make our work more inclusive, diverse, equitable, anti-racist, and accessible. This work is important to me because my personal mission is to share stories that make us realize the humanity in others. We should be able to have love and compassion for each other and appreciate, not depreciate each other for our differences. In theater, we should be able to see each other's stories. We provoke a new way of thinking, and we start conversations that stick in your mind long after you're gone. So when I say I worked with everybody, it truly was everybody in the organization, all staff. We got together in small groups and really focused in on this work and had the tough conversations. So this was people in marketing, people in development, people in carpentry and sound and lighting, people who are stage managers, people in IT, in our box office, our front of house, really everybody bringing their voice to the table. That was really important to me. It was the same opportunity I had as an apprentice, and I wanted to make sure we were opening that up to everybody on staff and all of our stakeholders within the organization. We're going to be a theater that allows everyone to come to the table, just as we did in this process. Everybody's going to be able to bring their voice and their light to what we already have. So I'm really excited to see what we look like, just 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. It's going to be an open opportunity theater. So this really set our foundation for the 4 cornerstones that we're focused in on: policy, programming, research and assessment, and communication, and how we do that in new ways so that there's more representation and so that it really is a full encompassing idea plan.
It boggles my mind that we're still asking whether art is important in our communities. Of course, art is important in our communities. It gives us a safe place to feel. If we can imagine it, then we can make it happen. And that is not just what gives me my greatest joy as an artist and as an actor, but it is also, I think, the greatest gift that we have to give as a community of artists.
And I really feel that art has a transformative, healing power. And more so than perhaps anything else in our lives. Things can change. Societies can grow more knowledgeable.
Liesl Tommy, I am thrilled to have you with us today. This has been a conversation long in the making. For those of you who may not know, Liesl will be directing our new musical, The Outsiders, whenever we come back into the building. And in the meantime, has been doing some incredible work in film and TV. Liesl, I would love to start by knowing how you actually got started. So you grew up in South Africa, right?
That's right. I grew up in South Africa, and then my family immigrated to the States when I was a teenager. And it was a pretty rough transition, coming from an apartheid state, growing up in a quote unquote colored township, which is the apartheid word for mixed race. And then, launching into Boston, Massachusetts, in a suburb with mostly white people. So it was a pretty tough transition, and I didn't really feel like I had anything in common with the students there. But then a wonderful teacher named Inez Dover reached out to me and said, in America, we have a thing called Black History Month. Wow. And we are going to do a show, and I wanted to know if you wanted to do it. I'm going to be directing it. And I said, okay. And it was like a 50-minute, like, the length of a periods version of For Colored Girls. She had condensed it to make it kind of, user-friendly for students. And I loved it. It was heaven. And I made friends, the other women in that play. And then I kind of went from there. I discovered theater as a passion, and I never looked back. And I was an actor for a really long time. I went on, by the way, to take over the Black History Month performances the entire time I was there. I went on to conceive of evenings of poetry and direct and cast, and I just sort of took it as mine because that was territory that I was allowed to take ownership of.
Yeah, it's amazing how teachers can give you this gift of opportunity that you never would think of, that you don't even know is a possibility for you, and it really changes the trajectory of your life.
That has happened all through my life. So I was so grateful, all along the line, those teachers seeing something in me before I could recognize it. And isn't that the job of a teacher?
That's right. That's right. Certainly the job of a good teacher, and a lot of the teachers that we work with who have been trying to bring theater, whether there's a theater program at a school or not, bring theater into their classrooms in ways that really inspire their students and get them up. When they approached you about The Outsiders, did you know the book?
It was one of my favorite books. I'd read it.
Was it really?
So many times in high school, because, come again, as like an immigrant teenager, there was just I did feel like an outsider. And I kind of felt like an outsider even in South Africa for, all kinds of reasons. So it was just something that captured my imagination. And I loved the characters. I loved the extreme emotion that and the love that the characters had for each other. It was so powerful. I read it over and over and over again.
It's one of the books that seems to really capture what it's like to be a teen, not the Hollywood version of a teen, but what it's really like to be a teen. And I'm fascinated by the prospect of what that will mean to see that play, the adaptation of that, both into a musical, but also at this time, this period in our history. How do you think Outsiders will land now on a stage than perhaps it would have landed when you were reading that book?
I think teenagers are still teenagers in their hearts. I think that the needs of an adolescent, which are hormonal and brain and like biological, those, no matter what's happening, what time we're living in, we could be in a post-apocalyptic world. We could be, in Romeo and Juliet's time, but the impulses of the biological body of a teenager are the same. We just keep learning more and more. Like, I really wish that my parents knew that teenagers need a lot of sleep when I was a teenager, that we've learned now. But, so I feel like the thing that drives teens, the importance of their community, of feeling seen and accepted, that will never go away. And that is, to me, part of the center of, and also how we deal with grief, because that's a big part of the book as well. The reason I'm drawn to that book is that it is universal. I had never been to Oklahoma. I didn't know anything about, people who owned horses in Oklahoma when I read it, but I felt like it was my story. And I felt like those boys were me and I was those boys. And so that's what I'm leaning into is the just the universality of her writing and these characters. And I guess there is something that is, kind of the ideal of like the dream of America, inside of that, that has captured people's imaginations all around the world. That is interesting to explore, because of course we know that the dream of America is a dream.
Right.
And that what she actually captured is people being marginalized, classism,
right,
racism, and how you fight for something you told. There's like a lot of the sense of why are we not allowed to be, why are we not accepted?
Right.
We're Americans just like they are. So why are we marginalized?
Yeah, I have to say that as devastating as the pandemic has been, with closures of all of the theatrical houses and cultural institutions, perhaps one of the blessings coming out of this is that outsiders may shift its time, because this is a show that I think really speaks to young people, as you've said, and is a perfect show for us to work with teachers around. I think it's still read, but not as widely read in school as it should be. And it's a perfect time to really have young people look at, what is this dream of America? Where do I fit, and where could I change the dream?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we try to do with all of the work that we have. It is particularly dazzling when it comes in the package of a musical on the stage, more so than almost anything else. Your body of work has gone from Frozen to Eclipsed, A Raisin in the Sun, to The Outsiders. Can you talk a little bit about how all of that now has informed your sense of what it means to be an artist today?
Sure. I consider myself very fortunate in that I have been able to work on projects that were profoundly personal and deeply inspiring to me. I really, and Frozen is a part of that because of what the story is. And I coming from South Africa, I am, as an artist, obsessed with stories of the pursuit of freedom, and that could be a society's freedom or an individual's freedom, because I grew up during the struggle. Characters, achieving empowerment or a sense of self-actualization is something that I'm always drawn to, and grief, actually, in storytelling is something that I'm always drawn to. A lot of the work that I've done often have ghosts in it, often have characters working through loss, profound loss. And The Outsiders kind of like ticks all of those boxes. So I do feel like I'm as a director, you're an artist, and so the things that are haunting you are the things that you're drawn to working out in this lifetime through your art. Whether you're a painter who's using the same color over and over and over again to figure something out, is the same as being a writer or a director, where there's there is something that is unexplainable and unknowable as an artist that you are trying to express with the work. And what I think is really profound about this time of pause and grief that we have been in, is that through all of this anxiety is, what have artists had to unearth inside of themselves?
What do you want theater to be when we come out of this? When we are able to gather again and watch house lights go to half and sit in a space, what do you want on those stages?
I've worked at just all over this country, from Laureate D theaters to Laureate A theaters. I've worked on every kind of show, since I started. And what I want for theater is for white people to view content from people of color the way that people of color have had to view white content for decades, which is that it's our story too. Not that it's a little bit of cultural tourism, not that it's, oh, that's how those people live over there. And I yearn for audiences to just walk into theaters and no matter who is on the stage and what is on the stage, that they feel connected to those stories as if they were their own.
Well, thank you so much, Liesl, for this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us for this event. It has been a terrific opportunity to really learn from you. I hope our audiences will be inspired to move through this time of grief, move to what we are reimagining as our new tomorrow, and to come back to the theaters and see The Outsiders. It's been a long time since we've had the luxury of sitting in these seats together in the dark watching a show. It's been a difficult time for all of us, for our families, for our industries, for our friends, for our country. And we still have a long way to go before we can settle into tomorrow. But art is alchemy. It allows us to see in new ways. And because of that, our work has never stopped. We quickly went virtual to continue to provide the richly diverse programming and productions Goodman is known for. We expanded our reach beyond classrooms to provide resources to families teaching at home. We developed new programs for teachers, for students, and for lifelong learners. And we broadened our reach into communities in Chicago with our incredible production of Fannie Lou Hamer, Speak on It. Goodman has always been more than just the work on our stages. We are also the passion and the commitment to build a more just and equitable society. And in this young new year, we have borne witness to the need for just such creativity. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? And yet the dawn is ours. Before we knew it, somehow we do it. This searing invocation to us, part of Amanda Gorman's inaugural poem, is elegance and eloquence. She was exceptional, but she is not an exception. Every young person in our program has the potential to be as brilliant if given the same opportunities. And that's why Goodman offers all of our programming for free. Because price and privilege should never be a barrier to potential. We build a scaffold for arts learning, but always understanding that curiosity, engagement, and passion builds citizens. Citizens who understand the responsibility to always bend the arc of the universe toward justice. But we cannot do this work alone. Every dollar you give us helps nurture the talents of hundreds of Amanda Gormans, whose potential is great, but whose choices are constrained. Help us support them to provide a safe space for them to follow their dreams and nurture their passions. For those of you who have contributed in the past, we greatly appreciate your contributions. For those of you who continue to support us and will support us today, thank you for joining us in this work. The easiest way to contribute today is to text Goodman21 to the number below. Or you can make a gift on our website at goodmantheater.org/tomorrow. As Amanda Gorman so passionately reminds us, a new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we are brave enough to see it. If only we are brave enough to be it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. As you heard, our artists, our staff, and our community partners are very hard at work creating a brighter future. If you have already supported our efforts this evening, thank you from the bottom of my heart. But if you haven't, there's still time. Just text the number on your screen. Join us in Reimagining Tomorrow. Good night.